Alex stepped off the shuttle and onto the strange planet's surface, his boots crunching against the rocky ground. He'd been sent on a mission to explore and gather information, but this world seemed different from others he'd visited. There was an eerie silence in the air, and the wind howled through the vast, empty plains. The planet's red skies made everything feel like a dream or a nightmare. He scanned his surroundings, trying to make sense of the quiet. Suddenly a shadow moved in the distance. Alex's hand instinctively reached for the weapon on his side, but he hesitated. The shadow wasn't human. He was sure of it. The figure stepped into view, and Alex's breath caught in his throat. She was tall, at least a head taller than him, with a powerful, commanding presence. Her skin was a pale blue, and her eyes gleamed like twin moons in the sky. She wore armor, but it wasn't just for show. Every piece of it seemed designed for battle, each curve and edge practical, meant for fighting and surviving. She was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. The woman didn't speak immediately. Instead, she just stood there, staring at him. The wind swept through her long, dark hair, but she didn't seem bothered by the cold. Her gaze was intense, as though she was weighing him, deciding whether he was worth her time. "Stay away, human." Her voice cut through the silence, deep and commanding. "I'm not what you think." Alex blinked. "What do you mean?" he asked, taking a cautious step forward. The woman's lips curled into a tight smile, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm dangerous. More dangerous than anything you've ever faced. You're no match for me." Her words sent a chill down Alex's spine. He could feel the weight of her presence. There was something about her that made his muscles tense, his instincts screaming to back off. But something else tugged at him, something deeper than fear. It was a pull, like gravity, drawing him toward her despite the warning in her voice. "I'm not here to fight you," Alex said, keeping his tone calm but firm. "I'm just here to explore, to learn about your people." The woman's expression darkened. "Then you shouldn't be here at all. I was made for war. I was born to destroy, and I don't need anyone. Not you, not anyone." Her words stung, and Alex couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. But he didn't let it show. "That doesn't mean you're beyond help," he said softly. At his words, the woman's eyes narrowed. "Help? Don't speak to me about help. I don't need it. I don't need you. I've lived my life alone. That's how it's meant to be." Alex took another step forward, carefully. "Everyone needs someone, even you." She took a step back, lifting her hand in warning. "Do not come closer, human. You don't understand. I'm not made for family, for love. I'm not made for anything but war. I don't belong to your world." Alex paused, his eyes meeting hers. Despite her words, there was something in her eyes that didn't match her harsh tone. He could see. It gnawed the loneliness behind her sharp gaze. It was hidden, buried beneath layers of strength and defiance. But it was there. "Maybe you're wrong," Alex said quietly. "Maybe you just haven't found the right person to show." The sun was beginning to set, casting a blood-red glow across the horizon when Alex heard the roar. It wasn't an animal's cry. It was something worse, something he could not yet understand. The ground trembled beneath his feet as if the very earth was warning him. He instinctively reached for his weapon, his heart pounding faster in his chest. "Get to cover." Nara's voice echoed across the plains, sharp and commanding. Without thinking, Alex ran toward her. Following the sound of her voice, Nara was standing at the edge of a large, rocky outcrop, her back straight and her eyes scanning the horizon. She was ready for something, he wasn't sure what, but he could feel it in the air. She wasn't the type to waste time on small talk. Her focus was absolute, her every movement filled with purpose. "What's going on?" Alex asked as he caught up with her, his pulse quickening from both fear and excitement. "They're here," she said, her voice low but fierce. "The Scifi people's enemies. They've been hunting me ever since I left the battlefield." Alex didn't have time to ask any more questions. In the distance, he saw the Scifi army, a band of heavily armored soldiers marching toward them. Their weapons gleamed under the setting sun, and their sheer numbers were overwhelming. "There. Coming fast," Alex said, his military training kicking in. "We'll need to move quickly. Nara's eyes locked with his. "You're not fast enough," she said, her tone cold. "I can handle them. You can't. Stay out of my way." Alex didn't argue. He'd learned quickly that Nara was not someone who wanted help. She was used to handling things herself, and there was a part of him that admired that strength, even if it made her seem cold. But as he watched the Korath closing in, he couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. He knew they had to fight together if they had any hope of surviving. "We don't have time to argue," Alex said, glancing at the approaching enemy. "We need a plan now." Nara studied him for a long moment, her eyes narrowing as if she was deciding whether or not to trust him. Finally, she nodded. "Fine, we fight together, but stay behind me." Alex didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed his weapon, adjusting his stance. Nara led the charge, sprinting toward the enemy. With speed and precision that left Alex in awe. Her movements were fluid, like a force of nature. Every step she took was calculated, and with every strike she made, an enemy fell. Alex followed closely, firing his weapon at the Korath soldiers, but he kept his distance. Nara was a whirlwind of power and grace. Her strikes were lethal, and the way she moved left him stunned. She wasn't just a fighter, she was a warrior in every sense of the word. But Alex noticed something else, something he hadn't seen before. Every time she took down an opponent, her eyes would flicker with something like sadness, like the victory came with a price, as the fight continued. Alex found himself drawn to Nara's strength and her vulnerability. She wasn't just the cold, distant warrior she wanted to be. Beneath the hardened surface, he could see the woman she was struggling to hide, and it made him feel even more connected to her. Finally, after what felt like hours, the Korath retreated. The battlefield fell silent except for the heavy breathing of both allies. Alex looked over at Nara, who was standing, panting, but still strong. As if nothing had happened. "You did it," Alex said, his voice filled with awe. "You're incredible." Nara wiped the blood from her blade, her expression unreadable. "It's nothing," she said, turning away. "Just another fight." But Alex could see the fatigue in her eyes, the toll it had taken on her. Invincible, no matter how hard she tried to make herself believe it. "Why don't you let me help next time?" he asked, his voice gentle. "You don't have to carry all of this alone." Nara stiffened at his words, and for a moment Alex thought she might lash out. But instead she simply shook her head. "I'm not made for family," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was born to fight. Nothing else." Alex didn't know how to respond. He didn't want to push her, but something inside him refused to give up on her. He could see that, despite everything, she wanted more than just a life of battle. "I know what it's like to feel alone," Alex said, taking a step closer to her. "I've been there. But I've learned that sometimes having someone by your side is the strongest thing you can have." Nara turned to him, her face hard, but her eyes softening just a little. "I don't need anyone," she said again. But Alex saw the cracks in her walls. "I'm not asking you to need me," Alex replied. "I'm just offering my help. Whatever happens, I'll be here." Nara didn't say anything for a long time, and Alex thought she might dismiss him again. But instead, she looked out at the horizon, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but steady. Maybe ... Maybe it's not so bad to have someone watch your back." Alex smiled, though Nara didn't see it. There was still so much they didn't understand about each other, but for the first time, it felt like they were beginning to trust one another. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The sun set behind them, and Alex couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. The days after the battle were quieter, but the tension between Alex and Nara remained. They traveled together through the planet's rough terrain, keeping their distance but sharing occasional glances. Alex had begun to learn more about her, but Nara was still a mystery. She was strong, yes, but there was something deeper, something hidden beneath her warrior exterior that made Alex wonder. Nara wasn't the kind of person who would talk freely. She didn't share much about herself, but every now and then, Alex caught a glimpse of her past. You could see it in her eyes, the haunted look that appeared after a battle, the weight of all the lives she had taken. It wasn't something she talked about, but Alex could feel the burden she carried. One evening, as they camped beneath the stars, Nara was sitting on a large rock, her back straight and her gaze fixed on the distant sky. Alex watched her from a distance, not wanting to disturb her, but unable to ignore the nagging feeling that something was wrong. He approached her carefully, sitting down a few feet away. The fire crackled between them, casting shadows on the rocky ground. "You're not sleeping?" Alex asked quietly, his voice gentle. Nara didn't answer immediately. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she stared into the fire, her eyes distant. "I don't need sleep," she said finally, her voice cold but not unkind. "It's not in my nature." Alex frowned, unsure of how to respond. He had seen the exhaustion in her eyes before, but it wasn't something she allowed herself to show. It was as if she was trying to push everything down, burying the pain beneath layers of strength. "You know, you don't have to pretend to be invincible all the time," Alex said, his voice softer now. "I'm here if you want to talk. But you don't have to carry it alone." Nara's hand tightened around the hilt of her blade, her knuckles white. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Alex waited patiently, not pushing her, but willing to listen if she chose to speak. Finally, Nara spoke, her voice low and heavy with emotion. "I wasn't made for peace," she said, her words almost a whisper. "I was made for war. People. They train us to be weapons, not to feel, not to care. I've seen things, done things, ... I don't know if I can ever be free from that." Alex's heart ached for her. He had known she was haunted by her past, but hearing it from her own lips made it real. She wasn't just a fierce warrior. She was a woman who had been shaped by violence, forced into a life she didn't want. "You don't have to be what they made you," Alex said, his voice firm but kind. "You can choose your own path. You don't have to live by their rules anymore." Nara shook her head, her eyes filled with sadness. "It's not that simple. I've killed Alex. I've taken lives without a second thought. That kind of thing doesn't just go away. It follows you no matter where you go." Alex was silent for a moment, thinking carefully about his words. He didn't have all the answers, but he did know one thing: he couldn't stand to see her suffer like this. "You're not alone in this, Nara," he said finally. "I've seen people change. It's hard, but it's possible. You don't have to do it alone. You have me." Nara's gaze flickered to him, her eyes locking with his. For the briefest moment, Alex saw something: vulnerability, fear, and even a hint of hope. But it vanished almost as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the cold, distant warrior he had come to know. "I'm not made for family," she said again, her voice steady but strained. "I don't know how to love, how to be loved. I was trained to be alone, to survive alone." Alex didn't look away. He knew this was her biggest fear: letting someone in, allowing herself to care. But he wasn't going to give up on her, not when he could see how much pain she was hiding. "Maybe you're wrong," Alex said, his voice soft but sure. "Maybe you just haven't found the right person to show you that you can be loved. You don't have to shut everyone out." Nara turned her head, her gaze falling back to the fire. She didn't answer him, but Alex could feel the weight of her thoughts. She wasn't ready to let go of the walls she had built around herself. Maybe Alex realized she didn't know how to. They sat in silence for a long time, the crackling fire the only sound between them. Alex didn't try to push her further, understood that she wasn't ready, but he also knew that if he gave up now, he might never have the chance to help her. As the night wore on, Nara stood up suddenly, her body tense. She looked toward the horizon, her expression hardening. "We need to keep moving," she said, her voice once again cold and distant. "There's nothing here for us." Alex nodded, understanding that the conversation was over for now. He stood and gathered his gear, but as he did, he caught a glimpse of Nara's face. For just a moment, he saw something different: a crack in her armor, a glimpse of the woman beneath the warrior. Maybe one day she would let him in. But for now, all he could do was be there for her. The days blurred together as Alex and Nara continued their journey through the harsh terrain of the planet. The constant threat of danger kept them on edge. But there was something else now: change in the air, a shift that neither of them could ignore. It was as if the spaces between them were beginning to close, but neither of them would admit it. They still fought side by side, but it was becoming more than just survival. There was a connection growing between them, subtle but undeniable. One evening, after a long day of travel, they set up camp under a sky filled with stars. The fire crackled between them, and Alex tried not to look too long at Nara. He knew she was struggling, but he didn't want to push her further. He had learned that Nara didn't open up easily, and whenever he tried to get closer, she would pull away. But that night, there was a quiet tension in the air, feeling that something was about to change. Nara sat on a large rock near the fire, her back straight, her eyes scanning the horizon as always. She had been silent all evening, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. Alex watched her from where he sat, unsure of how to break the silence. There was a part of him that felt the weight of her burden, but there was also a part of him that wanted to help her carry it. He couldn't stand to see her like this, trapped in her own mind, refusing to acknowledge the softer side of her that he knew existed. "Nara," Alex said softly, his voice breaking the quiet night. She didn't respond at first, her gaze fixed on the night sky. "Are you okay?" She glanced at him briefly, her expression unreadable. "I'm fine," she replied, but there was a heaviness in her tone that Alex recognized all too well. She wasn't fine. She never was. He took a deep breath, gathering the courage to speak the words he had been holding back for days. "You don't have to carry everything on your own, you know. I'm here." Nara turned to face him fully now, her eyes searching his, as if she was deciding whether to trust him with the vulnerability that she kept locked away. "I don't need anyone," she said, her words sharp, but Alex could see the flicker of doubt behind her gaze. "I'm not made for this. For family, for love." Alex's heart ached at her words. He had seen how she pushed away anyone who tried to get close. But he wasn't giving up, not now, not when she was so close to letting him in. "I know you don't think you need anyone. But you do. We all do, whether we admit it or not." Nara looked away, her jaw clenched. She was fighting something, some part of her that she didn't want to face. Alex could see it now, the way her shoulders were tense, the way her hands gripped the edges of her armor. She was afraid. Afraid of what it meant to let someone in. Afraid of the softness that she had buried deep inside herself. "I don't know how to do this," Nara said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to be something more than a weapon. I don't know how to love, how to let myself care about anyone." Alex stood up slowly, moving closer to her. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside her, close enough to feel the warmth of the fire, but far enough to give her space. He didn't try to push her or force her to speak. He just let her be. And after a few moments, Nara let out a long breath and spoke again, her voice softer this time. "I was trained to kill, Alex, to fight and to destroy. That's all I've ever known. Love, it's not part of who I am." Alex reached out, placing a hand gently on her arm. The touch was light, but it was enough to make Nara stiffen. For a moment she pulled back, but then she seemed to relax, her eyes still focused on the ground in front of her. Alex's hand remained there, a silent promise that he was there, that he wasn't going anywhere. "I don't think love has to be part of who you are," Lex said, his voice steady, but filled with compassion. "It's something you can learn, something you can choose. I've seen it happen. People change, Nara. I've changed. And if you want to, you can learn how to love, how to care about someone. You just have to let yourself." Nara's eyes flickered with something deep and hidden. She didn't respond at first, but Alex could see the struggle in her eyes. She was torn. Between the warrior she had been made to be and the person she was starting to become, he could see it now. The crack in her armor, the weakness she refused to acknowledge. She wasn't as invincible as she pretended to be. After a long silence, Nara finally spoke, her voice soft, almost uncertain. "And what if I fail? What if I can't be the person you think I am?" Alex turned to her fully, his eyes never leaving hers. "Then I'll be here to help you, every step of the way. I won't give up on you, Nara. You're not alone." For the first time in a long while, Nara didn't pull away. She didn't look at him with cold eyes, didn't hide behind her walls. She simply looked at him, her gaze filled with something. Alex couldn't quite name. There was a flicker of hope in her eyes, but it was fragile, like a flame in the wind. "I don't know how to love you," she said, her voice barely audible. Alex smiled gently, his hand still resting on her arm. "You don't have to know right now. But maybe, just maybe, we can figure it out together." Nara's gaze softened, just a little, and for the first time, Alex saw the faintest hint of a smile on her lips. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to give him hope. The fire crackled between them, casting a warm glow over the rocky landscape, where the first time Nara didn't feel so alone. The weeks that followed the quiet moment between Alex and Nara were filled with a mixture of tension and understanding. They moved through the planet's wilderness, facing both the elements and the occasional skirmish with hostile forces. Their bond was growing, but Nara still struggled to fully accept the kindness that Alex offered. Every now and then, she would push him away, as if afraid of what it meant to let him get too close. Alex, however, didn't give up. He stayed by her side, always offering a gentle word or a helping hand, even when she didn't seem to want it. He knew it was hard for her to trust. It's hard for her to believe that she deserved more than the life of violence she had been forced into. But Alex saw her for who she truly was. A warrior, yes, but also someone who deserved love, happiness, and peace. One night, after a long day of travel, Alex noticed something different about Nara. She had been quiet, even more withdrawn than usual. She wasn't speaking as much, and there was a look on her face that Alex hadn't seen before, a mixture of confusion and fear as they set up camp. Nara didn't immediately move to prepare the fire. She just sat on a rock, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Alex walked over to her, concerned. "Nara," he called softly, crouching beside her. "What's going on? You've been quiet all day." She didn't look at him at first. Instead, her fingers traced the edge of her blade, a nervous habit she had whenever she was unsure. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know what's happening to me, Alex. I don't feel like myself anymore." Alex frowned, his heart sinking. He had been afraid of this moment, the moment when Nara would finally have to confront the feelings she had been pushing away for so long. But he didn't want to push her. He wanted her to come to him on her own terms, and she was ready. "You've been through a lot," Alex said gently, sitting beside her. "I can't pretend to know what it's like for you, but I'm here. Whatever you're feeling, you don't have to go through it alone." Nara finally looked at him, her eyes full of uncertainty. "I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can be ... this person. I was made for war, Alex. I don't know how to live any other way." Alex reached out, his hand resting lightly on hers. "You don't have to be anyone you don't want to be. You can choose who you want to become." Nara's eyes filled with tears, though she quickly blinked them away, refusing to let him see her vulnerability. "I don't deserve your kindness," she said, her voice shaking. "I've been a weapon my entire life, and now I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all these feelings." Alex didn't answer right away. He simply took her hand. In his, giving it a reassuring squeeze. He didn't have all the answers. But he knew one thing: he wasn't going to let her face this alone. "You're not just a weapon, Nara," Alex said softly. "You're so much more than that. You have the power to choose a different path. You can be whoever you want to be." Nara didn't say anything, but Alex could see the conflict in her eyes. He knew that it wasn't going to be easy for her to accept what he was saying. She had spent her entire life believing she was destined for war, for violence. And to even consider the possibility of peace or love seemed impossible to her. That night, as they lay under the stars, Nara stayed awake long after Alex had drifted off to sleep. Her mind raced with the weight of everything they had talked about. She had never allowed herself to think of a different life. One where she wasn't a weapon, one where she wasn't alone. But something in Alex's words had struck a chord in her. Maybe it was time to start believing in something more. Maybe it was time to let go of the fear and start living. The next morning, as they packed up their camp, Nara felt something she hadn't expected. It was small, just a whisper of an emotion, but it was there. She looked at Alex, his back turned as he secured their supplies. And for the first time, she didn't see just a human soldier. She saw a person who cared about her, a person who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. She wasn't sure if she was ready to face everything, but for the first time, she wasn't so afraid to try. Later that afternoon, as they walked along the rocky path, Nara suddenly stopped. Alex turned to look at her, concerned. "What is it?" he asked. Nara hesitated, her hand resting on her stomach as she tried to collect her thoughts. It was hard to find the words, but she knew she had to say something. "Alex," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I think I'm pregnant." Alex's eyes widened in shock, and for a moment he couldn't speak. He had suspected something was different, but hearing it from her mouth was another thing entirely. "Are you sure?" he asked. His voice filled with concern. Nara nodded slowly, her eyes avoiding his. "I never thought it would happen, but ... it's true." Alex's mind raced, trying to process what this meant. He could see the fear in Nara's eyes, the same fear she had always carried with her. But this time it wasn't just about survival. It was about something new, something that neither of them had expected. "Nara," Alex said, his voice steady. "We'll figure this out together. You don't have to do this alone." She met his gaze then, and for the first time, there was a spark of hope in her eyes. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, something better. The days after Nara revealed her pregnancy were filled with mixed emotions. On the one hand, there was the fear and uncertainty that came with this unexpected turn in their journey. On the other hand, there was a flicker of hope, a chance for a new beginning, one that neither Nara nor Alex had imagined. The thought of a child, a future beyond the battles and the violence, brought both joy and fear in equal measure. Nara had always believed that she was incapable of having a family. Her people had trained her for war, and her whole life had been centered around survival. The idea of raising a child, of nurturing life instead of taking it, was something she had never considered. But now, with the baby growing inside her, the future seemed uncertain and yet full of possibilities as the days passed. Nara kept her distance from Alex. She wasn't sure what to feel or how to handle the change in her life. She didn't want to admit it, but the thought of having a family was both comforting and terrifying. She had never allowed herself to imagine a life beyond the battlefield. Now that the possibility was in front of her, it felt like a weight she couldn't bear. Alex, however, was different. He wasn't afraid. He never once hesitated when Nara told him about the baby. Instead, he showed nothing but support, love, and determination to help her through this. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Alex turned to Nara, his expression serious but gentle. "Nara, I know this is all a lot to process," he said, his voice steady. "But I want you to know that I'm here for you. I'll be here for you and the baby, no matter what." Nara looked at him, her eyes softening just a little. "I don't know how to do this, Alex. I don't know how to be a mother. I've spent my whole life fighting. I don't know anything about raising a child." Alex smiled and reached out to take her hand. "You don't have to know everything right now. We'll figure it out together. Can take it one step at a time." The sincerity in his words made Nara's heart ache. She had never imagined that someone could be so open, so willing to be there for her. She had spent her life pushing people away, refusing to let anyone get close. But Alex wasn't like the others. He didn't see her as a weapon or as something dangerous. He saw her as a person, someone worthy of love and care. And for the first time in a long time, Nara allowed herself to believe it. "I've been alone for so long," she whispered, her voice filled with uncertainty. "I don't know how to be part of a family. I don't know if I'm capable of it." "You are," Alex said firmly. "You're stronger than you think, and you don't have to do it alone. I'll be here with you every step of the way." Nara felt a tear slip down her cheek, though she quickly wiped it away. It wasn't something she was used to showing weakness, showing emotion. But with Alex, it felt different, felt safe. "We'll figure this out," Nara said softly, a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. Together. The days turned into weeks, and as the baby grew, so did Nara's confidence. She started to embrace the idea of becoming a mother. She wasn't perfect, and she knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time, she was willing to try. She had Alex by her side, And that made all the difference. One afternoon, while they were walking through the dense forest, Alex turned to Nara with a thoughtful expression. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if we left this planet?" He asked, "What if we went somewhere else, somewhere peaceful, where we could build a life for ourselves and the baby, a place where you don't have to fight anymore?" Nara stopped walking, the idea taking her by surprise. Of leaving the life she had known, her people, her world, it was all she had ever known. But the thought of starting over, of building a future without the constant fear of battle, was a dream she never dared to have. "Do you think that's possible?" she asked quietly. "I don't see why not," Alex said with a smile. "Can create our own future, Nara. The past doesn't have to define us. We can choose who we want to be." Nara looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. For the first time, she could see a future that wasn't shaped by violence. A future where she could be more than just a warrior, where she could be a mother, a partner, a person who had the right to love and be loved. "We could leave this place behind," Nara said softly, her voice filled with wonder. "We could start over. For the baby. For us," Alex nodded. "We could. Together." And for the first time in her life, Nara felt a sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be their own. They would create their own family, their own future, free from the chains of war that Nara realized was worth fighting for. As the sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape, Nara took Alex's hand, her heart filled with hope. She didn't have all the answers, and she didn't know what the future would bring. But with Alex by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would build a life, a family, and a future that was theirs to shape. And for the first time, Nara believed that love and family were possible, even for someone like her.